lovely! As creatives, we have a unique way of sharing with others. We can use words, pictures, or what have you. I recently shared a piece of art on Instagram and I thought it would be neat to share design tricks on posing and composition and color and how to create a completely unique piece that expresses who you are as an artist and as a person. I am always inspired by vintage ephemera and I value the glitz and the glam, but I do not support vintage values related to racism, sexism, homophobia, or any form of inequality. I wanted to create a piece of artwork for all those who feel the same. I am digging the fashions of the late 60s and early 70s right now. I love the super short baby doll dresses, bold patterns, and funky colors. I've been binging Mrs. America on Hulu, and I actually started doodling this while I was watching the show. I'm drawing on my iPad Pro in Procreate, by the way. I started out drawing this first gal to look like the model Twiggy, super thin and gangly, but then I decided I wanted to give her a slightly fuller figure. I tend to draw my gals very long and lean, which is something I'm trying to get better at not defaulting to since there are so many types of beautiful body shapes out there. I knew I wanted to have multiple figures in this composition to show a sense of camaraderie. Having the gals just standing next to each other kind of makes it seem like they're just tolerating each other, so I decided to link their arms together to make them look more like allies. I'm also adding face masks because I want to help normalize wearing face masks during COVID-19 and show you that you can still be super groovy and fashionable. The vintage images I was referencing were all of white ladies, so I decided to switch that up and be more inclusive. I like to do multiple rounds of sketches. I try and keep things really loose at the beginning. This helps me to get some movement so that the poses don't feel rigid or still. I'll clean up the lines once I feel like I've got something good down. Right now, I'm drawing the phrase vintage fashion, not vintage values, but later on I'm going to change it from the word fashion to style, just because it's a little bit more all-encompassing. I originally separated the phrase per sign, but ultimately I'm going to make both of the character signs say the same thing so that it is 100% clear that they both support the same cause. I'm playing with the angles in the composition to try and guide the viewer's eye all around in a cyclical view. If you're looking clockwise, the gal on the left's knee is pointing towards the bottom of her signpost. That sign tilts to lead your eye to the sign on the right, and that signpost angles down so that you take a peek at the fabulous lady who's holding it. I used to get super fussy with hand lettering, trying to get it perfect, but lately I think it's been more successful when I keep the lettering loose, sort of the way that I draw. I recently discovered an awesome artist, Gia Graham, and she shares a color palette in her monthly newsletter. All of the colors that I'm using here are from her June color palette. Definitely check out her beautiful work and give her a follow. I will be sure to include her Instagram link below. I'm currently using the ink bleed brush, which comes with Procreate and can be found in the inking brushes. While I know the exact colors I want to use, I'm not 100% sure which color will go where, but I'm just trying to get the colors down so that I can play around with them later. I'm not trying to obsess or get everything perfect right away because I like to be able to change my mind later. As I mentioned before, I was inspired by the fashions from the late 60s and early 70s, and I referenced several vintage magazine spreads to get ideas for dresses, shoes, poses, etc. I'm also making up a lot of stuff as I go. For example, I didn't reference anything for the hair, or patterns, or accessories. I'm just making those up. While it's easier and good practice to copy one picture, it's more fun and unique to gather a variety of inspiration, and when you bring it all together, you've created something totally original. I find tons of vintage inspiration on Pinterest and Instagram. I am pinning and bookmarking things left and right every single day. With the colors, I'm just trying to balance everything out. So we've got pink tights on the bottom left that are balanced with the pink dress on the top right, green tights on the bottom right, and a green dress top left. The black is being used sparingly throughout the entire composition, and I'm using all of the colors in the signs just to tie everything together. I'm going to share a couple of little background tips with you. Adding a little puddle shadow towards the bottom, you can faintly see it. It really helps to ground the ladies. And if you add a vignette, which is to add the darker shades around the edges, it really helps the figures in the middle pop by being the brightest because they're in the center. And I also add a little bit of a highlight behind them. The gals weren't popping quite enough against that light green, so I added a bit of a white outline around them to help solve this. For hand lettering, it's fun to reference vintage posters, matchboxes, packaging, advertisements, etc. Again, Pinterest is such a great resource. I also really like to source stuff like this at antique stores when possible. The 60s were such an interesting era for fashion. For example, hats and gloves were previously considered a staple. You would never leave the house without wearing them. But after this decade, wearing hats and gloves becomes much less common. Dresses are also much more comfortable to wear than those of the 50s. These baby doll dresses give kind of a childlike feel, sort of de-emphasizing a woman's curves. The looseness and dropped waistline also sort of harkens back to the 1920s. Shoes also played into that childlike idea, with women wearing short kitten heel pumps, Mary Jane strap shoes, and flat sneakers. Bold, graphic patterns like checkers, horizontal stripes, flowers, polka dots, and honeycomb are in. There's a lot of color blocking happening too. Dress hemlines rise above the knee, and we're seeing a lot more leg. Altogether, there's just so much color and confidence in these fashions, and it just felt like a great fit with the message. I added a bit of paper texture to get some of that hand-done feel. Up close, you can really see how textural that ink bleed brush is too. So we've got some ladies with vintage style, modern values, and they aren't afraid to speak up about it, all while wearing a mask, of course. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel because it helps me to make more videos for you. You can follow my art journey on Instagram and shop my art prints on Etsy. Stay sparkly!